What popular D&D concept or attitude do you absolutely hate? For me, and I'm not sure how popular this is, but I've seen it come up way more often than I would like, is the emo edgelord, "I'm a lone wolf and I don't know if I want to be a part of this group," character design. Literally the worst! Like, dude, I spent loads of time preparing this campaign. I shouldn't have to spend extra time, and neither should any of the other players, convincing you to play D&D. If your character doesn't want to be there, then what the hell is the point? I really don't like the concept of the false Hydra. I've never seen a story of it that didn't just make me roll my eyes. It seems annoying, and I would not enjoy it being in a game I play. You know, I really dislike when Rule 0 gets quoted in regards to rules questions. Yes, we know that the DM gets to set the rules of the table, but that doesn't mean that someone can't ask the community whether or not their understanding of the rules as written is accurate. There's an important difference between a DM ruling a certain way because they've made an informed choice to change the rules versus a DM ruling a certain way because they're ignorant of what the actual rules are. I hate the way agency seems to trump everything. I do, in fact, think that agency is a good thing and that my players should be in control of their characters. I also think of RPGs as my game, but their story. As in, the story is decided by the players, not me. I may start it, but they decide where it goes from there. But the term has become the worst kind of buzz phrase that no longer really means anything. It's gotten to the point where I saw someone claim that if the players didn't have a copy of the dungeon map all laid out, so they could see where everything was and what was in the various rooms, that this was the DM taking away agency from them because an uninformed decision is not a real decision. It's really the same thing as the word fun, which used to be trotted out all the time to shield players, saying that if the DM did anything they didn't like, then it wasn't fun and so shouldn't be allowed. Boo-hoo. Now it's agency, and if the DM tries to bring some consequences or doesn't rule in the player's favor, apparently that's taking away their agency, and agency trumps everything. The lone wolf character. I get the thought. You want to be a badass and do your own thing and be a renegade. But that doesn't work for an interactive medium. Things that work in movies and anime don't always work when adapting them elsewhere, especially to a TTRPG setting. I straight up refuse to let anyone play that kind of character unless there is a strong hook that ties the character to needing to be with the party for the campaign. Oh, I absolutely abhor the "sexy bard seduces everything" cliche, because bards have so much more depth than that. I grew up around real-life bards, performing artists, some of whom have become quite famous. Out of all of them, only one had the "seduce everything" mentality. The rest were socially anxious nightmares who found comfort on the stage. Additionally, it creates creepy tabletop players who essentially turn into walking roofie machines. Ugh. Bards are described as someone who weaves magic through words and music to inspire allies, demoralize foes, manipulate minds, create illusions, and even heal wounds. The "bard seduces the dragon" trope really frustrates me. That it's perfectly acceptable for one player to hold an entire group hostage by always canceling on the day of a game. Meanwhile, the DM is paying for subscriptions to keep the game running, which might not get used at all that month, but if he says nothing about it, he's the bad guy. So this isn't specifically for D&D, but it's a character trope that I absolutely hate playing with. It's the "I was super strong and did all these amazing things in my background, but I'm now level 1 because reasons?" It's never done well enough for it to work in roleplay, and it feels super main character syndrome to me. This is just my personal preference, of course, but yeah, it bothers me. The idea that players are dumb and they just have to show up. and you can't expect any more than that. Or there's the one where they just don't care about the lore, NPCs, and the world the DM has created, or worse, that it is okay that they don't care. That player death is the only way to have stakes for failure. Player death is as fine a motivator as any, but I think the prevailing attitude that without it, the game is entirely without consequence, is stupid. If the only motivator you have to spur your players into action is the threat of death, then your quests and missions are painfully boring. There are a billion other consequences you could have for failure. For example, lose a fight against a monster that's threatening a village, half the occupants are massacred, and the village falls into poverty and destitution, with many services no longer available, if the party is even welcome after their failure. So you lose a fight against the big bad evil guy or his minions. You're thrown into a dungeon, jail, or slave camp, stripped of all your supplies, or something like that. Honestly, I find character death to be painfully one-note and generally unsatisfying from a narrative perspective. Obviously, there are some situations where it makes sense, but being killed by a tribe of goblins out on the road is way less interesting than being captured and prepped to be used as a ritual sacrifice or whatever other possibility. Hit points aren't meat points. What? Tell that to someone who was swallowed by a gelatinous cube, grappled by a roper, paralyzed by a carrion crawler, or thrown into a pool of lava. Explain why a bearded devil totally hasn't hit you, but you're taking ongoing bleed damage until you get healed and can't be healed because of its poison. Why does a rogue or monk, who has multiple features for avoiding harm, have less will to live than a fighter, paladin, or barbarian? Personally, I really don't like extreme cases of flavor is free. If you want your Eldritch Blast to be a laser beam or lightning bolt or a stream of glittery sparkles, well, great. But if you want your Eldritch Blast to be a gun, or an Inspector Gadget extendo fist punch, or a lawn dart, just please no. I don't know why, but it really bumps me when the described action is so critically different from the based game mechanic. I know we often hear complaints about theory crafting, but my personal grievance is with what passes for math in those posts. Just because you can write something using numbers doesn't mean it's informative. In fact, unless you're very careful, numbers are just as likely to confuse or sometimes even outright lie. A common situation is when you see someone saying, "This is an X% increase in damage," which is legitimately mathematically meaningless. A typical combat session is measured in rounds and hero resources, which means any meaningful damage metric should be expressed either in those terms against some agreed standard, I like to use the number of goblins, or in terms the GM can use to appropriately prepare. Your numbers are just a word salad that doesn't contribute anything to the discussion. Ta-da! Nat 20s are automatic successes on ability checks. Now, I think this comes from streaming shows, and while it makes for some hilarious fun when watching, it's not rules as written, or raw, at all, and makes the world feel a lot less realistic. I want to do some shenanigans that are totally insane and could never work. Okay, that's gonna be really hard. Roll me the appropriate ability check. Nat 20! Yep, it worked! I have this as one of the few explicit rules I explain in my Session Zeros. Nat 20s on attack rolls are automatic successes. Nat 20s on ability checks are just 20s. Random encounters are bad because they're not part of the plot. What? This feels like treating the game as a published piece of work for an external audience rather than a game. Sure, on your highly produced TTRPG podcast YouTube series, there probably won't be random encounters. But that's because the objective is not merely to play the game for its own sake, but to reformat the game as entertainment. I also suspect this comes from DMs who do not run efficient combat, so all combat is seen negatively unless you are confronting a major plot NPC. Random encounters do serve the game side of things and can lead to emergent plot. For example, If a party member contracts a dangerous poison or curse from a random encounter, that raises the stakes for whatever they were planning next, or it may force them to divert off the obvious course of action. The magic here is that neither the party nor the DM knows where this could take the story. Everyone experiences the surprise together. Random encounters, when done right, become part of the plot. The random part could even be pre-rolled for the DM to balance and make interesting before the session. Maybe players do so well in the encounter that the DM rewards them with plot-relevant rewards like a secret about the landscape that helps them cut down travel time. Or maybe saving an NPC yields them rewards that will help them with their quest. Sometimes it just reinforces that traveling in certain areas is dangerous and connects the narrative danger to mechanical danger. Attrition of party resources like HP, spell slots, and supplies means that you can provide your players meaningful choices when they travel, cut through the dangerous parts, or take the longer, safer route. Saying an area is dangerous to a player doesn't mean much until they experience a tough combat encounter. Now, I'm not saying random encounters are always useful for every game, but they have been unfairly maligned. It's a tool that can be implemented with various degrees of skill. My hot take is that random PC death is not fun or exciting. I don't agree with the idea that death is a necessary part of the game and that it makes the game better when death is real and permanent. I think what people actually enjoy is the threat of death and the excitement of a close call. That does feel pretty fun. Coming really close to disaster is scary but exhilarating. However, when your luck runs out, the fun stops. Dealing with a permanently dead character is rarely enjoyable, both for the DM and the player, especially when it's due to a random roll of the dice or a sequence of unfortunate events. It's weird that our hobby considers this normal and good when it feels so bad for everyone involved. I have a strong preference for non-lethal games, and it's annoying to me how deeply ingrained this idea is in D&D culture. Too many people insist that you must get used to killing your PCs if you want to be a good DM, and that you must accept random character death as a player. I don't like it, and I don't want to like it. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and of course let us know in the comments below what popular D&D concept or attitude do you absolutely hate. And you'd be doing a huge favor to us if you would join our membership program. You don't have to, but it does keep the lights on and the furnaces running this winter. The big benefit here for you is that you get to have early access to videos and plus more content in the future. I love you all. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.